Hey, what's going on, guys? Divizzle and
Asama Talk, what's going on?
and we're from Team Stand and Draw, bringing you guys a discussion video, one of many to come. So this week's discussion, we're going to talk about Zeroth Dragons. Everybody has opinions, and now it's Stand and Draw's opportunity to bring you our opinions on Zeroth Dragons. So we're going to start with general thoughts on Zeroth Dragons, and then we're going to go into specific Zeroth Dragons, but general thoughts. We're going to start with Asama. What's your general thoughts on Zeroth Dragons?
So, to begin my impression on Zeroth Dragons in general, I will admittingly say, to begin with, we all know they're a very powerful unit. Whether or not they can, influence the entire game in one fell swoop, that is a claim in and of its own. I will say one thing for sure. They are a nice fine addition to Card 5 Vanguard. I will definitely admit that. I would like to say that at first, when I first heard of the Zeroth Dragon, my first claim was, oh look, it's an Exodia unit. I'm not gonna lie, that seems pretty cool. Busted, yeah.
Hey.
But you know what? I'll take what's given to me with a grain of salt. Pretty busted, but I'll still take it. It's pretty nice. And in all honesty, I feel like where they could have came up with something better, this is just as good as it is. It's also, in terms of the anime, it's pretty impactful with what happens with the Zeroth Dragons, manifesting into the world and just destroying everything around is pretty damn cool. But, that's beside the point. That's here nor there. But, again, the Zeroth Dragons, they most certainly bring a phenomenal amount of game impact to the table for Card 5 Vanguard, and I really couldn't ask for anything more.
Alright, cool. So, at least for me, the Divizzle, I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I think they suck. They're just terrible.
Jesus Christ, wow. How forward?
So, the idea that I got from Zeroth Dragon, I just thought it was going to be another GB8, which it ultimately is.
I should have mentioned that.
It's kind of your end game stride, and if you don't, well, it's the end of the game for you. So
it will be the end of the game. So, that's really.
You lose your G zone if you don't win. I'm assuming that people aren't gonna spam this card. I feel like people might be. I haven't seen a lot of tournaments with it. Granted, I haven't been to a tournament in a while, but I don't know. I just feel like there's other strides you could be going into rather than this card. Like for Tachikaze's case, were you really going to Dragma or were you going to Dogma? So
to follow up on that, at this point, the ZR itself, unlike normal generation rare cards, triple rares, things like that, it's not imperative based on how powerful the skill is that it has to be inside the deck. With a ZR, I can admittingly say one thing. It is a preference to have. Now, I could be wrong. This is simply my opinion. But I just feel like where ZR might have the strength to actually lay a large impact on a turn during a game, it isn't something that you should rely on too strongly or actually hope it will do you great justice at some point. And also, as I just said, it's a preference. Whether or not you want to use it is your choice. It's not something that the game itself is making you do. So whether or not you use it or not isn't going to determine whether you win or lose a game. So at this point, you could still go back to the fashion of playing a GB8 as opposed to actually just tossing in a ZR just because you pulled it and it actually has some relatively powerful effect to it. So it's choice.
Alright, cool. So with the effects in mind, and with that being said, we're going to just jump on into one of these six, and we're going to go through all six. So buckle up, we're going to have a fun ride. We're going to start with Zoe for Zoo Nation, so you can use that with 3 clans from the Zoo Nation. Ultimate Stride, just going to run that through one good time, just for people who don't know. Ultimate Stride is only released when you pay the cost of, paying the cost of a grade 3 or the copy of your Vanguard. And then you can only activate or use Ultimate Stride when you have 3 or more cards face up in G-Zone. So it's different from GB3, if for those who are thinking that. No, you have to have 3 cards face up in your G-Zone. And if you do not win that turn, your whole G-Zone is removed from the game. So even the face up cards that are in your G-Zone, everything goes. So you got to win with that turn. Alright, so for Zoe's skill, CB2, when it's placed on Vanguard Circle, you may pay the cost. If you do, draw a card, choose a card from your hand, call it to Vanguard Circle, and that card gets 99,999 power, and cannot be targeted by card effects. And if it deals a damage to your opponent, you win the game, or your opponent loses the game. Same thing. But that's his skill. First impressions, Osama, what are you thinking on this card?
So here's my thing. Some of the ZRs are synergetic to every clan in the game. Other ZRs are not. How I feel about this ZR in particular, we all know that if the ZR touches you, that is it. The game's over. You can do nothing, and there is no ifs, ands, or buts around it. There are no heal triggers. There is nothing that can save you after that point. The only thing about it is where it is a OTK, it can also be stopped relatively easily with a simple perfect guard. That's just really it. Where the power has reached a maximum number that can literally go no further, it is not like it can be completely shut down cold. A perfect guard easily solves that problem. So it's not the scariest thing in the world, but it isn't something you want to go against unprepared. So at that point, your choices then become, do I go into a game knowing I'm fighting a Zoo Nation clan and they have a ZR, so I hold on to a perfect guard? Or do I just play, I play with my life and just try to end the game before they go into said ZR? Which brings into the general statement of what's the likelihood of you being able to stop your opponent from going into a ZR? That's an entirely different conversation in and of itself, but it's just a question to keep in mind. Whether or not your turns are well played enough to be able to stop your opponent from playing their ZR turn and ending them before it happens. But the Zoa ZR, obviously I can admit where it's strong, it's easily stopped, and there's nothing for any card fighter to be afraid of, honestly.
For me personally, I mean, yeah, the fact that I can call it trigger and it'll have maximum power, it's pretty cool. Seeing it on first glance, I mean, I had the same impression. Hey, I could just perfect guard it. Then the question was, will I have a perfect guard at that time?
These are the questions.
In the show, the Tachikaze player did not have a perfect guard, and he dropped majority of his hand to guard that. So, it really depends on what your hand is. If your opponent is really paying attention to what you're drawing and what you're using to guard, he can get you off guard. You never know. So, Asama, will this see play by some clans? So, like Great Nature, Neonactive, American Colony, will this see play?
And in all honesty, so as I said before, the statement with it being synergetic with every clan in said nation, I feel like personally the Zoa actually I could see it be played. It's more of a thing where Zoo Nation has always failed in its ability to be able to end the game the way they choose with a really strong one-hit wonder. That's something I've noticed. They're very time consuming in being able to build up their power to be able to finish a game. Zoa has now acted as that exact element that they lacked. The one turn, really strong punching wonder to finish their opponent, with the side note of it being guarded really easily. But yeah, no, definitely I can see it being played. If they desire that one hit push, I say play it. Why not? I mean, I see no reason not to play it, especially when you're given an OTK win con like this so easily laid into your hand. Go for it.
Interesting. From my opinion, I kind of don't see it being played. I don't know. For Mega Colony, I see Overwhelm being played because Overwhelm's probably being played at 3 or 4. Neonectar, they kind of have a good amount of strides at this moment.
Yeah, their choice is pretty versatile.
Their latest GR gives a crit to all units in the front row. And Great Nature, at this point, most of their strides are power punching. So
always has been.
This card might be on the back burner. Who knows? Cool.
That's pretty likely.
We're gonna jump into the next card from Ultimate United Sanctuary. So Ultima. Gonna skip over Ultimate Strike because we already know how that works, right? Tell me in the comment section below. CB2, when it's placed on Vanguard Circle, you may pay the cost. If you do, search your deck for 4 cards. Call 2 of those cards to open. I thought that said open Vanguard Circle. I would have thrown off. Call 2 of those cards to Vanguard Circle, and then put 2 of those cards to the top of your deck. And all your units will be chosen by your trigger effects until the end of the turn. Disclaimers for this card. For now.
Disclaimers.
Not for now, forever.
Yeah, there you go.
Your Vanguard will not be affected by a stand trigger.
There you go. Since apparently people were a bit confused by that.
You will not draw 5 cards.
There you go.
You will not heal 5 heal triggers. The only thing you will possibly get is standing 5 units of your rear guards, and your whole board gets plus a crit. So keep that in mind, okay? Alright, cool. So, first impressions.
So, with Ultima, I'm not gonna lie to you, I find it rather scary for one reason, and one reason only. Angel Feather exists. I'm not gonna lie to you. The rescue ability, the fact that they actually have the ability to drive check almost at any given moment during that turn, and then you add an Ultima's ability, that's drive check city. That's really all that is. And what's pretty terrifying about that is there's no end to how often something can get power or a trigger off just about anything. And I'm pretty sure this could be explained a lot better by my man Diviso over here, since he plays Angel Feathers. You know, I'm actually gonna swing that to you. What is your thought on the synergetic, the synergy between Angel Feathers and Ultima?
Well, first impression, I mean, I really enjoyed the card. I mean, it took a little bit of OTT, it took a little bit of gold powder, it took a little bit of everybody to put into this card to, long time coming. For synergy wise with Angel Feathers, man, this is, for one, I mean, if we're going to jump into the last question now, will the C play? I could see an Angel Feather player playing this.
As a backup, no?
Probably a backup. They're not going to go into it every game. Me personally, I don't want to play it, but, I could see an Angel Feather player playing this. Will it be used every game? Again, no. But for rescue, I mean, that's a whole board getting plus crits if they hit a trigger on the trigger check. Now again, this does put 2 cards at the top of your deck, so hey, that could be 2 crit triggers. That could be a crit trigger and a stand trigger. So
what scares me about that is where we're adding cards back to the top of the deck, that automatically gives rescue more to work with, since they check the top card of the deck to rescue, and they put it into the damage zone, which then gives the field itself buffs. So it's like the field's getting buffs, the fields are getting triggers, and everything is just somehow getting stronger and stronger with every piece of the turn that goes into play. And what scares me is there doesn't seem to be an actual limit to how much stronger the board can get with time, as the effects seem to go off, proccing from one to the next. That's what gets to me. And unfortunately, Angel Feather is the only one that can probably go off that strongly in terms of how much they can get boosted in that single turn, along with Ultima's ability. Everything else that seems to benefit from either being, going off what they generally do as a clan, calling things, being able to check stay informative of what's on the top of the decks and all that other stuff. But Angel Feather seems to benefit from almost the entirety of Ultima's ability, from what it seems like.
So I already answered the question, but will the C play?
It's debatable, but I really feel like it all comes down to which clan you're playing specifically for the United Sanctuary, because sure, you can look at me and say that what's the guy's name, Cosma in the show, well, not technically Geese, different in Geese, was playing Ultima, but at this point there was a lot. But that's only one of the 5 clans in United Sanctuary. We can't say Genesis can use it as well as Shadow Paladins and Angel Feathers. We can't say Gold Paladins can use it as well as Angel Feathers and Shadow Paladins. And it's debatable on whether or not Royal Paladins can use it, despite being similar to Gold Paladins, as well as Angel Feathers and Shadow Paladins. From what we surmise so far.
You can do some interesting stuff.
But there's definitely, I will not take away from the players themselves. Players have done some pretty interesting things with certain units, so I will definitely say that some things are possible.
All right, cool. We're gonna jump into our next card, which is everyone's favorite Dragma, right? Everybody
loves
Dragma. So,
my soul.
we're gonna start with Drogba here. Good old Drogba, CB2. When it's placed on Vanguard Circle, you can pay the cost. If you do, retire all of your opponent's units.
I love it.
So, not one, not two, not three. All of them.
Every single one.
That includes the Vanguard Circles, the Vanguard as well. So,
should have lost right there.
Bind them face up, and your opponent chooses 3 cards in their hand. Discards 2 of them, and your opponent rides the 3rd card on their Vanguard Circle as stand. The disclaimer on this card is, since it's retiring the Vanguard Circle, if your opponent has no cards in his hand, he chooses a card from Soul to ride his stand. If he has no cards in Soul, you win the game. There's been a lot of hate around this card.
No, so hold on, let me stop it right there real quick.
Go.
It's not even that there was hate it's well, you know what, I'm lying to myself. There definitely was hate. What was it, day 1 that the card showed itself in the anime? Yes, there was some outrageous, hate and rage for this card. It was, to be fair, it was hilarious to me. Everyone just assumed the card was just it cut and dry. It was busted. There was no way you can stop it. And one of the things it did is that it influenced every single part of the game itself, from the player to the board. It influenced everything. But see, that's natural. We have to remember that there's another ZR that we're gonna get to soon that also seems to influence all the clans that it plays and takes from their skills. So with Drachma, it affects your hand, it affects your soul, it affects your field, which is part of your soul, which is part of your field. It literally affects every single given element in the game practically in a single turn. And what's more is the main point is it leaves you practically defenseless, and you have to be very careful on what it is you choose to drop. Because it's not like the opponent himself is making them choose what cards you have to discard. You have to make the choice. So in the worst case scenario, if your hand isn't sufficient enough to be able to select what cards have to go and what cards can stay to be able to counter the rest of that turn, that might just be the end for you. Now, to make the laydown claim that a player going against Drachma will not have the sufficient, will have sufficient means to live that turn in terms of soul and hand is an entirely different story. But one thing's for sure: if you don't have the hand, you best believe the rest of the game itself is not gonna go your way. Because for one, Drachma can be stopped just as easy. Well, not as easily, but it can be stopped just like Zoa. It's not impossible to stop. That's one thing that the entire world themselves has pretty much come to confirmation with. It's not impossible, and it's not like it's a guaranteed OTK. So at this point, whether or not you're capable of being able to build up toward the turn that the ZR may come onto the board is what'll determine whether or not you can live that exact turn.
So I mean, just to follow up from that, I mean, it is not an OTK. I mean, if your opponent is like drive checking a lot of grade 1s and 2s, and you see that they only have stride fighters in hand, not grade 3s, you probably got it from there. If their hand powers are like 6, then you kind of win the game. Now, if you lose, here's the fun part. If your opponent survives the round, so like say they got a grade 2 in their hand and they ride the grade 2. Funny thing about that is that they can stride using the grade 2 and a copy of the grade 2, because Ultimate Stride says, hey, discard a copy of your Vanguard Circle. So
that's kind of funny.
Hey,
so in other words, if someone chooses if they Drachma'd you can in favor ZR them back.
Yeah, so
and finish the game right there.
There's something to look out for.
That's unfortunate.
I'm gonna start with the question. Will it see play? From opinion of the population or the Vanguard population, it seems like a no.
I couldn't agree with that more, honestly.
I mean, listen,
you guys made it evident to us that it isn't going to see play.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I played Tachikase, and I'd rather go into Dogma than Drachma. So,
at this point, if you want to play it for the sake of fun, then sure, go for it. But if we're gonna be realistic here, the likelihood of it seeing tournament play, not that likely. Now, here's my thing. I most certainly won't take from the players in the community base themselves. But I will say this. a ZR is not your go-to for a guaranteed finish. So Drachma, despite the way its skill functions, is not something you want to just toss onto the table and expect it to work, and if it fails you get upset. That doesn't make any sense. I have to be honest.
Well, I mean, that's how some cards go.
like in all honesty, we know it could be stopped, so be careful how you choose to use Drachma. Right. Because like I said, the prepared is normally the best people. The most prepared are the best people.
So we're gonna go into the one of the last three. So we're gonna go to Stark.
Oh wow, that guy.
Everybody loves Stark, right?
Hi Stark.
So his ultimate stride first and foremost, and then second ability is CV2 when it's placed on Vanguard Circle. Pay the cost if you do. Until the end of the turn, this card gets drive -2, and when this card does not rest when it attacks, and it can attack up to 3 times.
Inconvenient.
Which is great. First impressions. How you feel about this?
Ah, boy. Yeah, I got something to say about that. How nice that it actually has to have a function state, so around the fact that it's not supposed to rest. Now, I understand that's kind of like a Stargate thing. I get it, but it's like Mega Colony players sympathize with me. It hurts that it doesn't go into a rest state when it's finished attacking.
So the non-rest is really to combat. To not mesh well with Laurel, so that way you won't get multiple stands going off.
That too, actually.
I see it as that. I also will say that can we perfect guard this 3 times?
Yeah, that's not happening. I'm not gonna lie to you. You can look me in the face and tell me what's the likelihood of you storing having 3 perfect guards in your hand before it starts exact turn that it's played, and then tell me you have 3 cards to give up alone with the perfect guards. That's probably not gonna happen.
Not including the rare guards either. So
So unless you're willing to say, oh look, I just so happen to have 2 to 3 damage first starts turn, which isn't gonna happen. That's looking like a pretty strong finish.
It's a strong finisher. I will say with the clans that are coming out with this card's release, that for us in America, that's not until February 23rd, I believe so, if I remember that correctly. For Japan, it comes out Friday, January 19th. At the time it's recording, it should be out by now. With the decks that's with this card, this is a powerhouse. Like Nova Grapplers, you're probably going to be dropping a couple cards before Stark comes out. Dimension Release gets a good amount of power. Gallop itself.
Jesus Christ.
Don't even get me started about Dimensional Robos, because that in itself, like Dimax gets crits and stuff like that. And then Chaos Breaker. Now, with it not, it's not the most impossible deck to fight, but it's a tough deck to get around.
If you think it's not going to give you a hard time, you're sadly mistaken.
Yeah, so for Stark to come out and give it 3 attacks at 36, it's going to be a tough game. I'll start off by saying, will it see play? Yes.
Oh, yeah, no, certainly.
Yes. Yeah, well, that's how I see it.
I feel inclined to retract a part of my statement, but okay.
Hey, this is what Stark is. We're on to the Dark Zone Nation, Dust.
Oh, great. The card that apparently ended up getting eroded on the week of that it showed up, because people really were that upset about how busted the ability is, which, I couldn't agree with you more. It was pretty busted. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Listen, in my opinion, it only takes L's.
I didn't complain about it, though.
The card only takes L's, so besides the fact of how good it is. So let's go through the scope. Ultimate Stride, CV2 on placement, you may pay the cost. If you do, until the end of turn, your opponent's Vanguard and Rear Guards lose their abilities. This is not like another card I'm thinking of. Lose their abilities, and their grades and power decrease to 1. And if the number of cards in your damage zone is 4 or less, deal your opponent 1 damage. They perform a damage check. Before that last sentence was not there, it was just do your opponent a damage. Bushy Road has seen the arguments are.
This one they've seen the error of their ways when they wrote.
I don't want to say the errors of the way. I feel like there was just so much backlash that they were just like, hey, I think this card might make a dent in the meta, so we're just gonna take it back.
Some people make the claim that if you're very calculative on how much damage you choose to take against a Dark Zone deck, there's a likelihood that you could actually avoid having the effect beforehand actually hurt you more than it should. So at this point, my impression for Dust would probably be, how do I put this?
You seem stressed.
You'd be surprised. I'm actually a lot more. It is kind of stressful because we have to consider the before and after of Dust before it was eroded and after it got eroded. Could we make the claim that the requirement to dealing the damage and simply not having a requirement at all actually makes or breaks Dust as a unit? Not so much. Honestly, cut and dry and across the board, you're still going to be dealing the damage. That's how I see it. It's just going to happen when it's played on the board.
I mean, the only difference is that one, before the card was an instant win.
Oh yeah.
Now the card is just like, I'm going to push you to the limit, and guarding is going to be a hassle for you. Now, Sama, you personally play Pale Moons. How do you see this function, or Cernajets? How do you see this working with your Pale Moon deck? Or if you do want to play it or not.
It's funny you say that. I've taken my time to get input from Reddit, from the wiki, and from many other different communities regarding Vanguard, and all of them had different opinions on it. Some say they can see it. Some say see it being played. Others say they don't like it really. They don't really like the idea of it. But in all honesty, I can say I'm sort of in between. I'm conflicted for a number of reasons. Because for one, as of right now, for Pale Moon as a whole, our choice of G zone literally is pretty inadequate. We don't have many choices, especially in terms of units that are capable of actually putting a very powerful impact mid to late game. Our choices isn't really, they're not really too out there. So at this point, I can actually say Dust would be a phenomenal addition to Pale Moon's G Zone lineup in general. But would I want to put myself at the risk of already, losing the game because I couldn't muster up a really strong play with what I already have to work with and whatnot using Dust? I find myself at a crossroad. But if I had to find a way to be somewhat honest with myself, yeah, I would probably play with Pale Moon, because at this point, where we might have an inadequate amount of G zones to work with, the G units we have right now are not weak. So they have stuff to give to the table. I can just make the claim that it is not enough. Fairfield is probably the only thing I can give some form of credit to, but she is a very odd card to play. That's the only thing. That is not something you want to say to yourself, I want to play 4 of. So obviously, in which case, if you do choose to play Fairfield, you'll probably play it at 1 or 2 at best. And somewhere in between, if you do choose to play Dust, you will play Dust as well, just for the sake of knowing that this card is what you're going to grab your opponent by the throat and just take them out with. Aggressively speaking.
For me, in my opinion, I mean, will it see play? I guess it depends on the deck. For Spike Brothers, I guess you'd play it just to play it. Who knows? I mean, it's really up to the player. Gear Chronicle.
In all honesty, I hate to admit, but the show made it pretty evident that the synergy with Gear Chronicle and Dust is pretty. It's pretty okay.
I mean, the synergy with Dust and Chrono is just not okay.
You have to watch him lose his G Zone.
Yeah.
Oh God.
So we're gonna move on to our last ZR, the 1/4.
Magellanica.
Yeah, for some reason I just can't say that word. So this is the first one revealed, and we're doing it last. Hey, good look at that. So his ability, Ultimate Stride, CB2 on placement. When you may pay the cost. If you do, choose up to 5 units total, 5 cards total. Sorry, my bad. From your hand or drop zone, call them the separate rear guard. They get 5 power and red text until the end of battle. At the end of battle. When this unit attacked, you can choose one of your other rear guards and swap positions. So basically, This is taken from Grand Blue, Bermuda Triangle, and Aqua Force, putting it on one card, slapping it together, and now we got a dragon. So, first impressions, Osama?
You know, it's funny. With Megaido, I really thought when it was revealed that every single ZR was going to be the exact same. That they were simply going to take one or the main trait of each clan and form it into one unit. That was my impression when I first saw Megaido being used.
So you would think.
He said, now he not only set the standard, but with Vanguard in general, it just so happens to be a trend. So it's just like once something universal like that happens to show itself, you would kind of like make the claim that every other thing that comes out after that would simply follow suit. But apparently we were mistaken as the other ZR started to show up. But with Megaido, I could not think of a better way for a unit like Megaido to be played in any of the 3 Magellanica clans. It's, to be honest with you, Grand Blue, you can't bounce units back to your hand. But Megaido gives you something relatively similar to that to work with.
Well, it calls units from hand, but...
Yeah. It gives you something like that to work with. It's just being able to call units from hand. Obviously, you don't call units from hand with Grand Blue. You call it from the drop zone. But now, if you want to be able to get off holification skills with Grand Blue without having to ride on the drop zone, I mean... Who knows? If you're lucky enough, the skills could probably proc that way. It's pretty odd to say.
You could holofog, so
exactly.
There's that.
I mean, I know the requirement for holification is the units have to come from the drop zone and be hauled onto the board for it to enter a holified state. But there's a possibility that can work a little oddly, in a really odd sense. Bermuda Triangle, I'll admit. Calling units from the drop zone with Bermuda Triangle sounds fucking dumb. I'm not gonna lie.
Perfect.
It sounds busted, yo. It sounds pretty good. I'm not gonna lie.
And with as an Aqua Force user, we just have a field day with this card.
Oh yeah, definitely a whole field trip.
Yeah.
Call from hand, something you really don't get to do at all, and it gives you more choices for more attacks, and you get to call from drop zone for more attacks
for the units that got killed off prior. So.
Yeah, mind you, that's Aqua Force's biggest thing. Their most important key cards always getting killed off.
Yeah.
As soon as they're seen a threat, so it's like, okay, cool, you kill it. I'm just gonna bring it back and use it again. So. And what's more is, if I want to save that unit for later, I can pop that unit into the back row. So I can swap him into the back row to save him for later and then send him back to the front when it's time for him to start swinging. So...
Just to transition from that, I mean, as much love as an Aqua Force player I have for this card, will it see play? Personal opinion, it seems as if me and other Aqua Force players are just going to go to Alexandros. So...
That card is so...
It just won't see play. It'll probably see play depending on your opponent's hand power, but Alexandros just gets the job done a lot easier. Assam? Will it see play?
It's funny. I found myself at a bit of a crossroad with this one. I guess out of everything, if any of the 3 clans is gonna use it or probably see play with it, Aqua Force, it's not so likely. Bermuda Triangle is a little so-so. Grand Blue is probably the only one I'd see the most play with, but with enough forethought and whatnot, I kind of just realized maybe it just might not see any play at all. It's I don't know. It's really odd to explain, but if you were to give me a choice between the 3 on which one I had to pick to play Megaido with, it would probably be Bermuda Triangle. That's honestly how I feel. I just feel like with the way Megaido's ability works, Bermuda Triangle will be able to get the most out of that. That's how I feel. Because they're taking everything Megaido has and using it at its pretty much peak. Its fundamental peak. So we lose units, we call them back, and if a skill goes off and procs, we can bounce it back to hand. If we can call units from hand just right off the back without having to worry about any skills not being able to go off in time, and just to meet the swap units, that just sounds nice in and of itself. We can't really swap units. Grand Blue can kind of do that by calling on top of them over and over again by means of holification and whatnot. Aqua Force just naturally does that. We just simply put cards back to our hand and into the field. So it's not so much swapping, but just restoring our resources is all it is. So I feel like Bermuda could get the most out of it.
All right, cool. So with that, we pass the question off to you. Tell us what you guys think about Zeroth Dragons. Which one do you guys think is the best in your opinion? And with that being said, Team Stand and Draw signing off.
See you guys later.